This is my favorite. I am going to now tell you how we sample or how we observe animals. Imagine you've come from a different planet. I just put a random name here. Um, so you are an alien. You have come to this planet, and of course, this planet is full of humans. And you have been given this task of getting to know the species called Homo sapiens sapiens better. So you have to take detailed notes on what the species does. You would be, of course, struck by the fact that they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes and colors, because we wear clothes, we have different hairstyles, we have different skin colors, there are many races, we speak different languages. So it would be obviously quite overwhelming to you as an alien. But then if you start looking for patterns, you are going to see that there are certain behaviors that this species perform. So you would be writing down things like they eat food 4 times a day. The smaller ones of the species or the babies, they spend a lot of time playing and making a lot of noise, or people keep talking to each other or vocalizing or whatever you would like to call it. There are people, walking around the streets all the time. Then there are, people who are socializing in many ways. And of course, there's a lot of sleeping that happens, so on and so forth. So these are only, very common examples of human behavior which I've put in. There are, of course, many, many, many more. So if you were an alien and if you were to see humans, if you were to write down all that we do, you would be having a lot of interesting things to write down, and there would be a lot of details you could add. For example, you could make a long list of the kind of foods that we eat. You could make a long list of how we eat, because different kinds of people eat in different ways. And then, of course, we cook. So there would be a lot of things to write about if you were to observe humans. This is the kind of idea I'm trying to give you, because this is what we do when we actually go out in the field doing ad libitum observations. Ad libitum observations are basically observations which are qualitative, where you write down anything and everything that you see of your focal species or of your species of interest. So whenever we want to study an organism, we typically begin with this, because that gives us a nice kind of background to prepare our questions in. Ad libitum means no limits. Literally, it means no limits. Why no limits? You are free to observe any number of individuals or a single individual if you like. You might say, I'm interested in cats, but I will only observe my pet cat. Fine. You can watch at any point of time for any duration. It could be 5 minutes or 5 hours at a time, doesn't matter, at any place. So there are really no rules about when and how to do ad libitum observations, which is a lot of freedom, because then when we get down to quantitative observations, every step you take would be based on a protocol which is pre-decided. There would be a set of rules giving you how much time to spend in a kind of observation, how to do it, when to do it, how many times to do it, how many number of individuals to observe. All of this will be given by the design of the experiment, and you have to follow it like clockwork. However, when we do ad libitum observations, or we call them just ad lib, we don't have these limits. We have a lot of freedom to work at our own pace. What do? We write down everything that we see, no matter how trivial it might seem. Something which you think is trivial might actually be very important behavior for the species. So we don't decide whether this is simple, complex, trivial, important. We write down in as much detail as possible whatever we are seeing. And often I tell students, use line drawings, use sketches, use cartoons on the sides of your notebooks to explain things if you cannot if you cannot find the right words to do it. Some rules that we do follow during ad libitum. This is how a typical ad libitum notebook looks like. You start with the date of your observations and the place where we are doing observations. You write down the time of starting. For example, I start ad libitum now. I write 11:58 a.m. And then I make my notes. whatever I'm observing. Suppose I'm observing a crow, I write down whatever the crow is doing. And then either the crow flies off, or I get a phone call, or I'm hungry, or I'm just bored. I don't want to do it anymore. I need to take a break. I need to go attend the class. Doesn't matter. I'm going to stop. Draw a line, go back to the top, write down the time of stopping. From the time of starting to stopping, it might be only a 5-minute duration. It could be 15 minutes. It could be an hour. Doesn't matter. Each bout has to be marked with the time of start and stop. Next time you're going to observe the crow again or crows again, begin the same way and go on the same way. This is the only rule that we follow. So why are we doing this? Because we get to cover the behavioral repertoire of the model system. Gradually, patterns start to emerge. It could be temporal patterns. For example, I get to see that this animal is more active during a certain time of the day or night, or this animal seems to go to look for food at certain time of the day, or look, there could be seasonal variations in behavior which become apparent to us depending on how long you're doing your ad libitum observations. We get to identify behaviors which are very frequent, some behaviors which are rare. Sometimes we don't see all the behaviors that, when you're doing your ad libitum for shorter times, of course, you don't get to see all the behaviors that a species performs, but you get a subset. And very often, while you are doing ad libitum on the species, questions start to form about them in your mind, which help you to explore further and go deeper, asking the right kind of questions, which can be addressed using this model system. Some things to remember: always use a separate notebook for your ad lib. Don't mix it with your class notes and anything else. Never use loose sheets. You're going to lose them. Ad libitum data is precious. Always use a ballpoint pen. No ink pens, because if it rains, they might get washed off. No pencils. Always take breaks whenever you're bored. Stop. Don't over-exercise your mind. You are going to lose information. It's not going to be helpful. And never, ever submit fair copy of your ad libitum notes. A field notebook is a field notebook. It should be kept the way it is, and that has a lot more information than while you're trying to type it all out in neat a Word file. You are going to lose all of that information. So no fair copies. Once we have done quite a bit of ad libitum and we are satisfied that, I kind of am getting to know the species, then we use this information from the ad libitum to build what we call an ethogram. So an ethogram, so this is a technical definition, but I'm just telling you in lay terms, it's basically a list of behaviors that a certain species performs. And you have the list with short descriptions of this behavior, something like this. This is taken from a paper on captive elephants. And here you see these are simple English words: walk, feed, stand, sway, trunk swing, maintenance, etc., etc. And for each, they have a short description of what they mean by, what walk is, but still you have to put in a description. It says movement from one area to another in the process of taking more than one stride at the time of the scan. So if the elephant takes one step, it is not included in walk. If the elephant has taken several steps and moved, then it is considered as a walk, so on and so forth. Now, I can define a behavior using a common English term based on the way I see it in my species, and that will become part of my ethogram. So the ethogram is again very important, because from your ad libitum data, you have a whole range of behaviors that you've seen. Now you discretize them and you say, this is called walk, this is called run, this is called run fast, this is called chase, so on and so forth. And this list is what we are going to eventually use for our field recording of observations of the model system. In the ethogram, behaviors have been discretized, but they can be simple discrete behaviors, like I said, walk, run fast, etc. Or I can just say, for my purpose, I don't care if this animal is walking or running. This is under the broad category of movement. Because for this kind of question I'm addressing, movement is good enough. I might have a behavior described as play. Now, for example, when we started working with dogs, we just said play behavior. Then some students said, but I'm interested in the patterns in play behavior. And she went and did further ad libitum observations of her own. And then she broke down behavior into initiation of play, the play bow, play mounting, mock biting, rolling, etc., etc., etc. So now play is a behavior, but then it can be further discretized into shorter and shorter components, which can be then counted and noted down. So this is what more ad libitum observations lead to. I can give you an example again from my lab. When we began, we had an ethogram of 100 behaviors collated by myself and my first 2 students. This list is way over 150 now, because new students have come, done ad libitum, and they have said, but you know, I saw this one behavior which looks a little different from what we already have in the ad libitum, in the ethogram. So we added it as a new behavior and the ethogram got updated. So that is the fun of doing ad libitum observations. And imagine this is for a species like a stray dog, which we think we know all about. Everybody says, you know, oh, we know dogs so well, what is there to study? But there we found behaviors which we had never seen or discretized for that matter. And often in ethograms, what people do is, instead of writing a full word for a behavior, we often give a code. So a walk can be a WK or a WA, vocalization can be a VO, so on and so forth. And you use these short codes for fast recording of observations in the field. Any questions up to here?
Ma'am, can you explain what do you mean by model organism?
Yeah, the model organism is, for example, I am interested in stray dogs. So that is my model organism. So if I am interested in addressing a question using a certain species of animal, that becomes my model organism. If you are going to study a crow, then the crow becomes your model organism. Your task is to choose an animal in and around your house where it is safe to observe for you, carry out a minimum of 8 hours of ad libitum. And this minimum of 8 hours of ad libitum can be broken into short spells, long spells, whenever you're free, you're getting bored, no classes, anytime. As I said, there are no rules for that. If possible, cover different times of the day, use different individuals, if possible, different locations. But if it's all of this is, if possible, none of this is written in stone.